This is my watch. It's a Rolex Datejust 41mm, internally known as the Wimbledon. I've wanted this watch for just under a year now. It's been my lock screen on my phone for months, even though my girlfriend doesn't really like it. I have probably 4 or 5 watch marketplace apps on my phone. I subscribe to tons of watch YouTubers, and I posted this picture the other day, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, I see all kinds of watch-related content in my social media feed, so I think I just kind of wanted to participate, but also I thought that it would make me feel a little bit less uncomfortable about owning something this gaudy and attention-grabbing, but it didn't. It's kind of weird, but I'm trying to get used to it. Full disclosure, I mean, I'm in a position financially where it's not unreasonable for me to own something like this. And you might be thinking that that's kind of the end of the story, like some rich asshole just gets to burn his disposable income and then get some YouTube content out of it and clickbait me. But I promise it's not the end of the story, so just let me explain. My anxiety prevented me from doing this for months. This watch was supposed to be a present to myself for completing a project that hopefully you guys are going to get to see very, very soon, but the project had some delays, so I delayed the gratification of getting the watch, which made sense to me. But some of you who might know a thing or two about watches know that sometimes dealers will call you months after the fact that you've even told them that you're interested in a watch. If you don't decide to take that one when they say that it's finally come through, you're actually less likely to get it in the future. So I made the decision to answer that call, even though this project isn't fully finished. I succumbed to the pressure of a dealer telling me that what I wanted had just came through. I put the cart before the horse, which is very unlike me in my nature, and it didn't feel very good. Honestly, when I look down at my wrist, I kind of am reminded of the fact that I put the cart before the horse. And I think that people see getting yourself a nice watch as a sign of making it, but really I kind of look down and see it as a sign of being dishonest with people. I mean, the other obvious reality of this watch is that I don't need it. I mean, sure, we all probably own something that we don't need, that we think we paid too much for, or that we don't really use to its fullest extent. Maybe some of you out there have the newest iPhone that has some features that really aren't that practical to you. I mean, you could have gotten away with just having the previous gen iPhone and been totally fine, but you'd probably be called a little bit of a hater if you scoffed at your friend for buying the newest iPhone. They're still going to use it every day. I mean, that's what they use to call, text, communicate, entertain themselves. I mean, I get a lot of mileage out of my phone. It runs my work life, it keeps me safe, it keeps me connected, it entertains me. Well, with a nice watch, it's not really the case. It is important to know the time, yes, but it's pretty much free to know the time nowadays any way you cut it. When I look down at my wrist, I'm reminded that the functionality of this watch could have been accessed for free. I'm also a little afraid to wear it. I mean, it's a nice piece of jewelry, and I don't want anything bad to happen to it, so I have to keep an eye on it. And now that kind of adds to the social anxiety of being that inept guy who owns the really nice watch and is overly worried about a materialistic item. I also come from a family that, yes, actually has a lot of disposable income themselves, but generally detests capitalism. Even if they were to ever buy themselves something so unnecessary as a watch, it would be a $20 watch from a secondhand store. In fact, most people don't really endorse spending this kind of money on something so obsolete. I remember handing my credit card to the person at the watch dealership and just feeling so unconfident in my decision. I was playing out every bad scenario that could have gone down in my head. I mean, I kept my sleeve over my watch the first few days I owned it because I was hoping people wouldn't really notice. I mean, I was afraid that it was going to change people's perception of me ultimately. I mean, now I was the guy who's excused of experiencing any sort of financial hardship, or I was the guy who is financially illiterate now. I was the 22-year-old who was acting my age. I mean, I felt like I needed a script prepared in case I needed to defend myself to anybody. And then nothing bad happened. In fact, not only did nothing bad happen, my family, who knows how hard I've worked on this project for the last 2 years and all the late nights and sacrifices I've made just to try and get this thing together, said that I would be silly if I walked away from an opportunity like this. My friends who saw it said it was such a Sam watch, which meant a lot to me, and they honestly were probably just happy that I got it, so that I would just shut the hell up about it every time we hung out. My friends who really care about me would never put me down for getting something that actually made me happy, especially if it was something to commemorate something that was very meaningful to me. One of my best friends related it to some of the tattoos that he's gotten over the years. The men in my family also own Datejusts to commemorate big milestones in their life, like graduating law school or getting married, and while I've not done either of those two things in particular, I've now done something meaningful enough to me to usher myself into this space of a shared interest with them. It feels really good to be connected with them in another way, and it is a big accomplishment. I mean, it's not fully polished enough yet that I feel comfortable releasing it to everybody, but when I look look down at my wrist to check the time, I'm reminded that this isn't finished yet, and I do have to complete this. I actually considered buying this and then just locking it away in my house somewhere until the day that this project was released, and then I was told that that was kind of ridiculous. I've joined a community of other watch owners that have made me feel so welcome to share what makes this piece so special to me. They fully encourage me to just nerd out about the lume and the movement and the history behind this piece, because they also really love sharing what they think makes their watches so special. I think that connecting with people who have a shared interest is probably one of the most fulfilling and truly enriching parts of living my life, and that fully extends to the people who I work with. Any First 11 fans out there, if you've been paying close attention, you might notice that Ryan and Trevor both have really cool watches. Trevor has actually lots of cool watches, and they've been pushing me to do this for a long time. One, because I think they just genuinely believed it would make me happy, which it did, but two, because now we have this thing that kind of threads us all together. This piece commemorates Rolex's partnership with Wimbledon, the oldest and most prestigious tennis tournament in the world. And I've spent pretty much my whole life playing tennis. I mean, I still play tennis every week to this day, so it only kind of seemed fitting. It's monochromatic, which I love, but it has some flair to it with these emerald green accents on it. It also has just enough complications for me to keep it very beautiful and very elegant. And yes, most watch collectors say that they only want one watch, and that never really happens, but I think that this one is pretty much perfect for me. At the end of this video, I know that some people are probably going to Google the price of this watch and still disagree with my decision, and that's okay, because there are other enthusiast groups that I personally would disagree with their decisions, or at least I have no interest in joining them, like comic books or trading cards or anything, but I still fully understand why those things make them tick. For a lot of people, myself included, the sentiment really supersedes the physical product. I hope I can pass this on one day as some sort of heirloom to somebody, and they can look at this and be reminded of who I was and what I loved. I want to give a special shout out to Trevor at our studio for buying me this Casio databank a few Christmases ago. Trevor bought all of us actually at the studio like $20 Casio watches, and that's actually what inspired Ryan to get into watches, and later down the line, me. The two things that really pulled me into this because of the databank was one, because it reminded Trevor of me. I studied math in college, and this is like the nerdy math watch that Casio makes, which I thought was just really, really nice that he kind of thought of me in a more personal aspect. And two, because we all had one. I mean, I'll show this legendary picture of all of us putting our hands in the middle with all of our Casio watches. It was just something so cool that really united us all. So I don't regret buying this watch. I am so happy to finally be a true part of the watch owner community. And frankly, I would like to push other people who are on the fence about this to do it. I mean, I know I really needed that push. I hated this thing at first because it didn't feel like me. It felt like I was taking on the persona of some rich, impulsive person who subscribed to the idea that materialistic things are meant to fulfill your need for attention and validation. But I got so caught up in that persona that I realized, one, maybe I actually was that really judgmental person who was unable to see another reason for why something like this could really make somebody happy. And two, there was so much about this thing that I loved, and I was just choosing to suppress it. It sounds cliche, but don't be afraid to do or own what might make you happy. You should be living within your means, of course, but what shouldn't keep you from doing or owning those things is the perception from somebody who doesn't even have that shared interest. I mean, I don't even know why you'd be trying to appease somebody like that. So I hope that this video finds an audience of people who have the opportunity to do something nice for themselves, but don't really have the courage to do it. I hope that this video in some way can help you relate to the anxieties of actually going through with something like this, and that you can find a way to allow yourself to be happy. If you own a watch, comment below what makes it so special to you, or message it to me on Instagram. I would love to talk to you there. Or if you don't own a watch and you're just aspiring to own one, comment what you want and why you want it. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment any future videos you'd like to see down below.